International. And it is a pleasure again to host you and have you here listening to us. And we will take about 1 or 2 minutes to just let everyone who registered for the webinar to come in. So just be a little bit patient. But what I would ask is that I'm muted. You can't hear me? Can you hear me? If you can hear me, put your thumbs up. I thought I was not muted.
We can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I can see several thumbs up. Good. So you can at least hear me. Thank you. Thank you for that validation. So let me start this again. Good evening, everybody, and welcome yet again to another webinar by Profiles International. And today we are very privileged to host a great speaker, especially in the matters of emotional intelligence, but more specifically, brand. So we will give it 1 more minute until 6:05. We just let everyone who registered for the webinar to just come in slowly. But as you do come in, please do tell us, where are you logging on from? Which town, possibly which country? And what are you looking to learn from today's webinar? So if you're next to a keyboard, be a keyboard warrior, tell us, where are you logging on from or logging in from, which town, which country, and then of course, what are you hoping to learn today? So I will read out some of the comments as they come in, so feel free. Make sure you write something that is memorable for me as well. So far, nothing. I'm seeing, oh, great. There's Dennis Kamau, who's logged in from Nanyuki, all the way from Nanyuki in Kenya. Thank you, Dennis. Feel very welcome. Let me see if I have anyone else coming through. Of course, there's myself from Nairobi, Kenya, and the team behind that profiles. That is Rose and Elizabeth, who are behind this webinar, logging in from Kenya. I'll let Derek tell us where he's logging in from when he joins us. So let us know where you're logging in from. I'm seeing we have quite a few people logging in right now. I have Raymond. Raymond is logging in from Mombasa, Kenya. You're very welcome, Raymond. And I have Jeffrey, who's logging in from Kaimosi, Vihiga, that's Kenya. I have Monique Mokayagi, who's logging in from Mavoko County, karibu sana. I have Doris logging in from Nairobi, Kenya. Doris, welcome. I have Brandon logging in from Mombasa, karibu sana. I have Moses Kamau logging in from Athi River. Machakos, karibu sana. Let's keep those logging coming in. And then I'm going to read 2 more and then we start. And then I have Jeremiah logging in from Nairobi City County, Lynette Nunda logging in from University of Nairobi, Alex from Nairobi, KE, and then Joy Florence. That's a beautiful name, Joy Florence from Nakuru. So thank you, everyone who's told us where they're logging in. Don't feel shy to keep telling us where you're logging in from. I can see Lynette Kisaka from Nairobi. And without further ado, allow me to start the webinar by just introducing myself. My name is Vicky Karuga, and I am the Managing Director of Profiles International. And Profiles International is really a company that is dedicated towards the growth of talent in organizations. So in conjunction with our associates, partners, and friends, we do run webinar series that are aimed at developing or growing skills in people that are more in the domain of what people like to call the softer skills of life. Though Derek likes to say those are not really soft skills. These are actually the real skills that you need to be able to navigate effectively in terms of wherever you work, whoever you're married to, your relationships. These skills, these soft skills impact your family life, your work life, and basically all aspects of your life. And today's webinar is titled, What Small Etiquette Mistakes Are Silently Damaging Your Professional Reputation. So we at Profiles promise to illuminate your path to greatness through tailored talent management solutions. And we are rooted in a lot of research, years of research through our partners, such as Genos International, Wiley International, and also Cross Knowledge. And we offer both educational expertise, and we strive to inspire, transform, and thrive people in organizations. So these are some of the products that we deploy in the market. And the first one being the Genus International Emotional Intelligence programs that we run. And this include a suite of assessments that can help you as an individual be able to understand where you're at when it comes to emotional intelligence and what you need to do to harness this skill that has been flagged as a top skill in leadership at the workplace and when it comes to the future of work. We also support organizations through their recruitment process by providing them with psychometric assessments. We also support teams through the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team. And this one is really for small teams. When we want to do team building for larger teams, we use another assessment called Everything Disc, which really is a personality assessment that is focused on allowing people to really understand each other and develop a language for communicating with each other. Our latest addition is the digital learning platform. And over here, we are offering various courses that are tailored to give you an edge in the future of work. They're centered on communication skills, on leadership skills, on people management skills, even on AI and how to harness the use of artificial intelligence in your leadership, and so on and so forth. In the academy, we also have authors, great renowned authors, such as Derek Banger. And he is online at the platform, delivering a personal course to you that you can take at your own time called Personal Branding and Business Etiquette. And what will you gain? You will understand what personal branding and professional image development is all about. You will talk about business etiquette in depth for modern workplaces. You will understand about strategic networking and visibility skills, how to communicate and how to present with mastery, as these are some of the skills that get you noticed at the workplace. And of course, how to ensure that you are digitally present and aligned to the expectations of the corporate world. So this course is starting on the 10th of March for only 45,000 shillings. If this is for you, please feel free to reach out to us at the end of the session or even during the session on the chat group, and we shall get in touch with you. You can also scan the QR code that is on the screen right now, or call us or WhatsApp us on the number 0722 457777. But this is information that we shall continue to share as the webinar goes on. So right now, I do want to invite the speaker that we are all here to listen to, and this is none other than Derek Banger, who's a good friend and a business associate. So we do tackle the topic of emotional intelligence with him, and we work together in various forums to ensure that we are also part of the people who are supporting Kenya and the world at large in developing skills such as emotional intelligence. So I'll say a little bit about him as I introduce him to you before he comes on. He is a facilitator, a trainer, and a coach with his company Public Image, I beg your pardon. And he has worked for many Fortune 100 companies and teams in Kenya, Africa, and around the world. In fact, as we were speaking, he was called to Germany to facilitate topics around this very session that we're sharing right now. And he'll tell us a bit more, I do imagine. And he works with people who want to increase the performance of their teams. They want to attract and retain people with excellent soft and interpersonal skills. And he also works with leaders who want to grow their leadership skills. And he believes in business today, whether you're a team leader or a team member, it is rarely the technical expertise that sets you apart. It is usually the human side that makes the difference. So mastering this just doesn't happen. It requires the same attention that you give to your technical expertise. So he holds a degree from SHU University. He's worked up and about and pursued further studies at Helsinki School of Economics in Finland. And he's an alumni of the Strathmore Business School and holds certification as an emotional intelligence practitioner from Genus International. I could go on, but I will make sure that we upload his bio to you and share it also with you in the emails that we will be sharing soon after this session. But allow me at this time to welcome Derek Banga, our speaker to this session. And I'd like us to show him some love by, posting some emojis. Zoom has become very, very exciting nowadays. So whether it's whatever reaction, it's a love heart, it's a thumbs up, it's yes, exactly. I think you know the drill. So thank you so much for that. Please continue. So welcome, Derek. Over to you, Asante Sana.
Good evening, everybody. I love the love hearts, the different emojis. Listen, guys, if you can hear me and if you can see me very well, Nyanyuki, Mombasa in the house, please put a Y or a yes in the chat. Put a Y or a yes in the chat if you can hear me well and if you can see me well. Let's get off on the right foot. Awesome. All right, I can see the yeses coming in. Wonderful. So today, what I'd like to share with you is, the topic was these small mistakes. I hate to break it to you. There are no small mistakes. In fact, I changed the title, and instead, what I'm going to call it is the unspoken rules of influence. In other words, professional etiquette for the strategic leader. Now, when I use the word leader, everybody in this room is a leader. We're all leaders. We're all aspiring leaders. We're all on our leadership journey. So I'll be using that word of leadership because for me, that is intrinsic, particularly when we talk about this topic of professional etiquette. These unspoken rules of professional etiquette for the strategic leader. By the way, note the words that I've used there. Influence, strategic. I don't use those words by choice or just because I had no other words to use. In fact, for me, let me tell you that influence, to me, is one of the number one soft skills that all of us should possess. In fact, that's why we're here. We are in the business of influencing our team members, influencing our customers, influencing our target market. So a lot of this is designed to be able to connect with consistency and clarity with our target market. Vicky read my background. I'm just going to share a short video with you. There's no sound, but I'd like you to take a look at it and tell me if you have any idea what this is showing. In fact, let me do it again because it might be a little bit small. I'm going to open it again. Let me see if I can play that again. Okay, let's try that again. So any idea what that event was? Because this event was, as they say, life-changing. In fact, more than life-changing. Thank you. I can see it in the comments. This was 9/11. So 9/11, I was there, ground zero. That day changed my life. I was working for a big financial company. Things happened, as you can tell. I'm not going to relive that day, except to say that at the end of that day, I decided that I was going to quit my job and instead change professions, if you will, and really go out and see if I can make a difference in this world. Not that I had not been making a difference. Certainly I'd been making a difference to my target market, but I was not as influential as they say. And that day changed everything. Today, ladies and gentlemen, my mission in life is to help you to be seen, to be heard, and to be remembered for the right reasons. Seen, heard, and remembered for the right reasons. Now, that's why I do what I do. Okay, let's get into it because we don't have too much time. Time is always limited in these sessions. As I said, I want to talk about how we can use professional etiquette as a strategic tool, meaning there is some mastery about being able to use it so that we can achieve our professional goals. In fact, for me, even the most skilled professionals, and I put myself in that category, we can always falter in our careers. Sometimes it's a case of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, just based on things that we are not necessarily doing the right way. So my goal here is to open up your eyes. For some of you, this might be a preacher who is saying the same message, except that maybe I come from another village. I'm not the same preacher that you listen to every day. But I think it is worth reminder if that is the case, based on some of the things I'm going to cover. Because for me, these missteps can lead to lack of credibility. They can lead to certainly a diminishing of the influence, and absolutely what we don't want is for our careers not to go forward. And whether that means we're working in the corporate world, we want our careers to go forward, we're entrepreneurs, we want our businesses to grow, we want to grow our teams, we want to grow our sphere of influence. Indeed, we want to make a mark in terms of what we do. So to me, that's why these are so important. And by the way, let me ask you a question. Has anything happened to you in terms of these missteps that I'm talking about? Now, I've not itemized them, but as you can well think about, there may be things that you have done that have taken you, as I said, you've gone 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Just put a Y or a yes and tell me that, yes, this happens to me, it has happened to me before, it happened to me previously, just so that I know that I'm talking to people that I'm connecting with. So has this happened to you? Any missteps in terms of your work, in terms of your dealings, again, with your target market? I can see the yeses coming in. Thank you very much. Yes, Zoe. Yes, thank you very much. Absolutely. This happens to the best of us. Thank you. Yes, Natalie. Yes, Willie. So this is not a death sentence. It is not a death knell. It's not the end of your career. But we want to keep moving forward. We want to keep learning, and we want to make sure perhaps that we don't repeat the same missteps that we may have done. So as we jump into this topic, let me pull up this guy, jumping into this topic, jumping into it. That's how I'm going to describe it. I want to talk about 3 things. One of them is something called relational capital. Relational capital. A relational capital, as you can imagine, is the capital, the assets, the finances that we build, that we deposit, however, not into a bank or a financial institution, but we're depositing these in what I call a relational account. So it's about making deliberate deposits. It's about making these strategic deposits to grow that account. And by the way, those missteps that I talked about, the small mistakes, as this webinar was titled, people will forgive you. They will give you grace, if I can use those words. They might overlook a few missteps if you have grown this relational capital, but you have to grow it. You can't start off by not increasing how much is deposited into this relational account. And this relational account, of course, is the connection that we have with our target market, whether with our teams, with our bosses, with our customers, with our vendors, whomever we come in touch with in the professional sphere. So number 1, deliberate or strategic deposits into this relational account. Number 2, Vicky mentioned that I am an emotional intelligence coach. So of course I had to throw in a little bit of EI in this topic, because for me, this topic reflects emotional intelligence. In fact, it is tied, it is central. You know, as an EI coach, there is a model that we use called the Genos model of emotional intelligence. And some of you may be familiar with this, having perhaps attended some of these webinars by profiles before. But I wanted to just bring this up just to remind you that what we're trying to do is to be more productive in terms of how we interact, we connect, we communicate, how clear we are with our target market. And as you can see, that Genos model of emotional intelligence, self-awareness, increasing our authenticity, managing ourselves, having a positive influence on people. And so for me, there is very little daylight or separation between emotional intelligence and this topic of professional etiquette, if you will. So there you go. And in fact, what I'm going to talk about is going to bring up some of these EI competencies, if you will. And then number 3 for me, it is about being clear, consistent, and being considerate. Now, I picked those words again deliberately, not because we have the 3 C's, but because we're talking about clarity in terms of our communication, consistency in terms of how often we are carrying this out, and then the literal definition of the word etiquette, which I didn't bring up, it's just only because we didn't have the time, is about thinking about the person who is in front of us. In fact, I always use the example between gold and platinum, which is more valuable? Just put that in the chat. Which is more valuable, gold or platinum? Which do you think is more valuable, gold or platinum? Okay. Let's see. So I'm seeing gold. Thank you, Joy. Gold, 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 a lot of gold. A platinum, Depends on what, Rachel? Okay, platinum, gold, platinum. Okay, mixed. Now, do you remember the golden rule? The golden rule is treat people as you would like to be treated. Well, the platinum rule supersedes the golden rule. And the platinum rule is treat people as they would like to be treated. Not how you would like to be treated. It's not about my comfort. It is not about my pricing. It is about how they would like things. And so for me, a lot of this, as I said, is tied to EI, because if you're going to inspire people, if you're going to have an awareness of other people, if you're going to be able to modify things in order to get the best, not just out of yourself, but out of other people, then it's about thinking of others. And in fact, therein lies the inherent definition of the word etiquette. So clear, considerate, clear, consistent, and considerate. There we go. Okay. So we want to be clear in our communications. And these communications, ladies and gentlemen, our brands are offline as well as online. In fact, those are the 2 areas I'm really going to focus on. How clear are you in your communication? How clear are you in terms of letting your target market know this is what you want? How clear are you to your teams? And then, of course, this is about walking the walk. I mean, I can say whatever I want, but if I don't walk that talk, then it comes to nil. There needs to be consistency in terms of how I interact, in terms of my actions. And of course, as I mentioned before, being considerate of other people. Okay. So 2 areas that I'm going to cover. There we go. Let me just bring them up. 2 main areas. There are many areas. This is a topic that we can talk about for weeks on end. And in fact, part of that program that Vicky was talking about, which is coming up in March, is going to go into greater detail. But for today, I'm going to focus on 2 main topics. And those 2 main topics are going to be your digital command presence. Again, if you look at the language that I am using, your digital command presence. It can be digital presence. I've heard of digital footprint, but it's about command. In other words, you are leading people. There's something strategic about how you are utilizing the digital space. And for me, this is so important because it's a sort of a reflection of your value system. It's a reflection of your professionalism. It's a reflection of your leadership style, if you will. But it's also about being strategic in the approach and, again, ensuring that you have that clarity and, of course, maintaining the authority, which is why we call it command, no matter where you sit. Okay? So if we look at the social media space, because that's where we are, all of us ideally should have some sort of digital footprint. And by the way, if you are not online in some fashion, that might be a red flag, certainly to your target market. So I always like to say, pick your poison. pick your poison. Which platforms are you known for? Which platforms do you use? And for me, obviously, I'm talking about platforms that are going to advance not just your professional etiquette, but your authority, expertise, your thought leadership, all of these words. So, which platforms are you on? Let me know, ladies and gentlemen, just in the chat there, tell me, what platforms do you use, or which ones are you familiar with? So which ones do you use? And again, the question is not just which ones do you use, but which ones do you use to advance this authority, this thought leadership, this professionalism, this expertise. All right, so LinkedIn, LinkedIn. Of course, I led you to the water. That was a gimme, as they say. That was a layup when I asked you which social media platform is the one that is going to show off your expertise. Now, having said that, somebody says WhatsApp. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Having said that, you can still use these other platforms, but certainly for me, the mother of all is LinkedIn. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can use LinkedIn in order to advance this professional etiquette that we're talking about. And again, listen, showing off your expertise. In fact, the way that I use these platforms is that they are platforms that I will use to showcase certain aspects or sides of the expertise or authority I have. I have experts, authority in different aspects. And what I do is I'll pick a platform like LinkedIn to show off, for example, this authority and expertise in, say, the topic we're talking about. But there's a creative side of my brain. Some of you may or may not be aware of that. And there are certain platforms that I use to showcase my expertise on that side. So again, it's a question of about being strategic. It's about being, how do you use these? Now, let me say this before we go any further. LinkedIn has changed in 2026, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, there is something called LinkedIn Brew. Now, this is different from how you would say the algorithm would change every, I don't know, 6 weeks or so. But this thing, and by the way, you can take a screenshot of that. It's called LinkedIn 360 Brew, has changed the way LinkedIn henceforth, going forward, is to be used. And I thought it would be useful for me to share this with you. By the way, how many people are familiar with this thing called 360 Brew? If you're familiar with it, just let me know in the chat and tell me, yes, I've heard of it, or I'm familiar with it, or I know what you're talking about, Derek. Anybody familiar with this thing called 360 Brew? Okay. Yeah, there may be very few people because, yeah, exactly. Who? Thank you, Vicky. Exactly. So what it is an AI ranking and recommendation system, which helps with the entire holistic part of LinkedIn. So that is from content to connections to job posts to anything that you do, to viewership, to posting. Think about how you use LinkedIn. Are you a stalker on LinkedIn? Do you just go into LinkedIn and just use it to look at people's posts, but you rarely put anything? That is being taken into account. Are you the sort of person, let me pull my face up. Are you the sort of person who goes into LinkedIn and just hits the likes when you see a nice post? That is being taken into account. And of course, there are people who use it a little bit more. All of those things are creating a footprint, if you will. In fact, I've used the word, this is not LinkedIn. This is me, if you will, which is by the last count, what? Close to 1 billion people on LinkedIn, somewhere in the region of 900 million, 1 billion people. They are looking for good LinkedIn citizens. And listen, there are all kinds of people who live in a country. And the better you are, the better you will be rewarded. In fact, that is what they're looking to do. They're looking to reward the good citizen on LinkedIn. So how can you do this? Let me go back. I may have skipped something. So in case I didn't make it clear, It's a full holistic view of all of your activity, posts, comments, profile, network, everything that you do when you come into the LinkedIn system. By the way, take a screenshot of this. I don't want you to do this activity now just because of time. But if you look at, if you take that, what is called the SSI, your social selling index, which is another way of, it's a number that shows how much of an impact you have on LinkedIn. This is a great way of sort of tracking how much influence you do have on LinkedIn. And by the way, Rose, maybe if you can just put that into the chat so that people can take, they can either copy paste it and they can, do this activity later. Later. I'm not going to go too much into this, but it's one way of sort of being able to see the impact that you have. Obviously, you can have a perfect score of 100, or you can be in the sort of bottom case percentile. Okay, so it's called let me just pull it up again in case you didn't see it. It's called the Social Selling Index. So you can take a screenshot of that and then type in that at your own time. Oh, in fact, I put it there. There you go. There it is. LinkedIn.com/sales.ssi. Okay. At the end of the day, what LinkedIn is looking for is to see how you are using this and are you advancing the sort of the ethos of LinkedIn. So here's number one, forget chasing likes. Your standing on LinkedIn is not going to be on a post that has 100 likes. In fact, what they want is for you to be helpful but clear. Right, as if you're explaining your area of expertise to someone who is not an expert in that area, but they can understand your language. So you don't have to dumb it down. In other words, what I'm saying here, ladies and gentlemen, the posts that are being rewarded are not being rewarded by likes, but being rewarded by LinkedIn. And when I say being rewarded, I'm talking about greater exposure to your target market. It's about you now being able to see other posts and other content that is relevant, that helps you. And the way that you're being rewarded is by about posting things that are in line with your profile, in line with your area of expertise, in line with your interest. Okay. So what I've seen, for example, over the last 6 or so months, or even all of last year, somebody would take a topical commentary from the world of politics or from any other field, and they would put it in and not link it to their expertise, but put it in there and, put in a night post, and then you'd find it has whatever, 50 likes or 100 likes or something like that. Now, in the past, that sort of post may have been rewarded. LinkedIn is now telling you that going forward, what I want is if you're an expert in emotional intelligence, in soft skills, in professional etiquette, then we want to see you commenting, liking, posting commentary on that area of expertise. By the way, I'm going through this a little bit fast because I have one eye on the clock. Obviously, there will be time for questions, so I'm not going to stop for questions now. But if you do have any questions about this, I'll be happy to answer them at the end. And by the way, I'm not a LinkedIn expert, but this is certainly one of my areas in terms of professional etiquette that I talk about. So when I say that's none of your business, what I'm saying is that do not get captivated by things that are not related to your business. In fact, I don't even know how to put this. It's not that you cannot look at a post that comes up where somebody has made a commentary on a tragedy that has happened in the real world. That happened to me recently. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to minimize content like that because I can find that content on any other platform. I don't have to come to LinkedIn to find content about politics or about a tragedy that has happened on LinkedIn. I can find that on X, or I can find that on Instagram or any other platform. Instead, what I'm looking for is content that is related to my area of business. I hope that's clear in terms of what I'm trying to say here, ladies and gentlemen. So create content that is authentic to you. I'm not even going to dive into the topic of every post that I see that seems to be done by some large language model, AI. That's a different conversation we can have. But content that is going to be helpful or showcase your professional expertise. And by the way, they also say avoid what is called bragging. Now, again, if you have some sort of achievement, accomplishment that you would like to share that accomplishment, but share it in the form of a way that is going to highlight your area of interest and expertise and help other people, not necessarily just bragging about that achievement. Now, this is a very sensitive topic. It goes without saying, myself included. You win a prize, you're feted somewhere, you go, you post that picture and you say, listen, I've been promoted. And then you get 100 people telling you thumbs up, well done, Bala. That content, unfortunately, is not being rewarded on LinkedIn. What they're looking for is people who are going to post things that are going to be, as I use that word, helpful and showcase the professional expertise. Now, you be the judge of whether putting something like that is going to help you be seen as the expert in your area. Okay, so pick certain themes and stick to them. My themes, it goes without saying, have been delineated pretty clearly. These so-called soft skills. This scattergun approach, where there's a topic of interest and you decide, you know what, I'm just going to post about it, is actually not being rewarded in the algorithm at the end of the day. That's what it is. In other words, LinkedIn won't know what to associate with you. This is a system that is going to reward people who are posting, commenting things that are in line with that, what you put in your profile. When you put your profile there, what is your area of expertise or interest? That is what is being rewarded. I know I've spent a little bit of time on this, but I thought it was actually important because I really wanted to give people a leg up in 2026. So optimize your profile, put in the keywords there that are going to be in line with your niche, your area of interest or expertise. And then now start, as I said, putting in things that showcase that. And by the way, social proof is also rewarded greatly under this 360 brew. Media coverage, testimonials from your clients or from your customers, any speaking engagements that you have, reposting of things that showcase your expertise in that particular area. Okay? So your strategy, engagement strategy, if you will, your engagement strategy should be insightful comments, expertise, diverse engagement only as far as it's not just about likes. It's not just about posting. Post, like, repost, DM, send interesting seminars like this or webinars like this to your colleagues, so long as it's in line with that part of your brand that you are trying to promote. And by the way, also looking at company pages and not just profiles is also makes you a good citizen here. Is greatly rewarded under this system. Okay, I'm just going to take a pause there because I may have to rethink my own strategy in terms of this webinar because I don't want to just fly on to the next topic without perhaps answering any burning questions. So I'll also take a pause so that I can take a sip of my drink. And Vicky, I'm going to ask you, are there any comments or questions or indeed any insight just based on the few things that I've covered since we began? Vicky? Vicky or Rose, are you there? Okay.
Can't see anything as yet on the
Nothing
chat.
as yet. Okay, that's fine.
Oh, I can't.
And by the way, that's not a problem.
No, there is something. So there are two questions from Moses. One is, does LinkedIn Premium help? In your opinion, is it worth the high cost, or can you achieve a lot on SSI without the premium? That's question one. And question two, how do you handle having more than one area of expertise or interest? Example,
Absolutely.
I'm in a tech sales leadership, and I'm also in wellness and coaching. Over to you.
Two very good questions. Both of them I will answer this way. Number one, yes, LinkedIn Premium helps, particularly if you're using Sales Navigator. If you want to be able to contact a larger database of people, if you want to be more targeted in terms of who you are, absolutely, there is a return on that investment. You have to decide, what is my job? Is my job looking for customers on LinkedIn, or is LinkedIn a good resource? Which it is. Absolutely, everyone will tell you, all the LinkedIn experts will tell you that paying for that premium is worth its weight in gold. That's a decision you have to make based again on your line of work. The second question about if you have 2 areas or 3 areas of expertise. Now, this is where the rubber meets the road. Remember, I alluded to picking your poison? You're going to have to pick one for LinkedIn, not both. Of course, you can post on both. Nobody's going to stop you. But again, under this new system, if you wanted to be rewarded, again, with engagement, with posts, with a wider, all of the things that we use LinkedIn for, pick one. Pick one area and stick to it. Now, again, you can be a little bit smart if there is a link between the two, if somehow those two can be combined. But if we're talking about 2 separate businesses, you're going to biashara hii na biashara ingine, pick one, promote that on LinkedIn, ile ingine, pick another platform. And by the way, you're only allowed to have one LinkedIn profile. So again, LinkedIn will punish you. Maybe punish is a strong word, but they can certainly make you a gray shadow so that your posts are not seen, you don't get any traction. I don't necessarily think that they kick people off any day. They just make sure that your posts are not seen if you have more than one profile. So I hope that answers that. Let me just move on. Thank you for those questions. Just to sort of put a bow on this topic, even moving beyond LinkedIn, is align all of your digital presence with professional etiquette. In other words, just make sure that what you are posting, what you are doing, whatever platform, LinkedIn, X, TikTok, for me, certainly, this is where I look at these things now. Listen, if I was to post information about what I had for breakfast, that might be something that my target market is interested if I post that on TikTok or if I post that on Instagram. Fair enough. But I am still sort of being intentional in positioning the fact that for me, posting healthy meals is part of my ethos of living a healthy life. And in fact, that's another part of my work that I do. I'm really into the wellness space. And so for me, intentionally positioning, using this platform to highlight this area that I'm an expert in, and then using that platform to highlight another area that I'm interested in. So it's about being intentional in positioning. And by the way, that goes to that question somebody asked about if I have 2 businesses or if I have a side hustle, whatever the case might be. Now, when I talk about tone discipline, what I'm talking about here is just be aware of how you react, particularly to posts that are inflammatory. We know that we live in a world these days where people will say anything, rage bait, clickbait to get you, nye, 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 how can you? Watch your brand and don't fall for it. Okay? Or, I don't know, get a burner account like some famous athletes. And then rage tweet all you want. Not that I'm advocating that. But there has to be some sort of restraint in terms of how you post. By the way, content choice, interaction etiquette, all of these things, make sure that it is leading people in the direction that you want them to think about you. You have an interest in health, you have an interest in the creative side, you have an interest in this, then That's the kind of content that you should be sharing. And it goes without saying, visual coherence. You should kind of look the same in a lot of the stuff that you post there. And I'm not going to get into that too much. I'm talking about like your picture on WhatsApp should match the picture that you have on LinkedIn. It shouldn't be a picture where you're split in half because somebody else has been taken away from that picture. You know what I mean? In this day and age when everybody has a smartphone, get a professional picture that, again, just showcases the type of professional that you are. And by the way, boundaries, which talk towards restraint, which talk towards just don't fall for everything that's out there. Your brand is as much, let me tell you, I meet somebody, even in the real world. First thing I do after that meeting is I go online to see what their footprint is. It says so much about that person. Okay, so I hope I've covered that enough. Maybe I should have gone into more detail, but let's just move on just in the interest of time. Because the second part of what I'm going to talk about is your brand now offline, which is obviously how you behave in the real world. And for me, I call it being in person, or what I call the social stage. And I'll explain these two. So how do you behave in person? How do you behave when you meet people in the real world? Talked a little bit about how you can behave in the real world. And I want to share this with you.
And I could tell after about 90 seconds.
Let me pull this up. I know you're not going to be able to see it, to hear it.
Present yourself physically without speaking a word. Your presence, your aura is a big deal. It's a big deal because you only walk into a room and meet new people once. And they're looking at you, you're looking at them, and it's how you deal with that nervousness, that nervous energy.
Let me play that again. Vicky, can you see this?
Yes, I can, and I can see, and yeah, and I can tell. Yeah, I could read them. I hope everyone else
Okay,
can.
let me play it again. Let me play it again. Now, of course,
I could sort of hear it.
You could hear it as well. Oh, fantastic. Okay, so this is Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary. Been on Shark Tank since its inception, 20 plus years. He has also become somewhat of a maverick, shall we say, in terms of his personal brand. But this is just an excerpt. So let me play this again. Look at what he's saying.
And I could tell after about 90 seconds, winner, loser. The ability to present yourself physically without speaking a word, your presence, your aura is a big deal. It's a big deal because you only walk into a room and meet new people once. And they're looking at you, you're looking at them, and it's how you deal with that nervousness, that nervous energy.
So, I mean, he was referring to the fact that, the people who walk in to Shark Tank, they're obviously there to pitch their service or their product or their business. And he immediately can tell that this is going to be successful or not. I love that analogy because it's the same thing. When you walk into a meeting at a restaurant, a hotel, a networking event, a business lunch, all of the things that we do as people in the professional world, there is something that should immediately tell that other person that there is something different about you. So that's why I love that clip. So he talks about, well, maybe he doesn't talk about it, but I certainly do, talking about being aware of your role and the context. Now that goes from everything to how you dress, to your body language, to where you sit. I'm aware that today I was going to deliver this webinar to a room full of professionals, and so I dressed, hopefully, appropriately. In fact, I did more than that. I used even the psychology of color. Red is the color that conveys maximum authority, confidence, and credibility. There is, again, that awareness. And even though the context is virtual, you understand what I mean. You have to be aware of this. You cannot walk through life just blind or using phrases like my dress, my choice. That is career suicide. Sorry to use such strong language. First impressions still matter. I love first impressions. It's a part of our brain. We even delve into this in EI, where you are going to have to fight harder if you don't make a positive first impression with your target market. And then, of course, there's consistency in terms of your messaging, how you speak, how you show up. even where you sit in a meeting. Did you know, for example, sitting opposite someone is actually not the most favorable position for you to achieve your goals in a meeting? Let me bring my face up there. Sitting opposite somebody. Now, I mean, I'm sure the people who are saying, sasa leo unataka tuketi wapi? Kiti ndio hiyo? Customer keti hapa? That's where I'm going to sit. No. You can actually shift that in your favor by choosing to say, and I'm not going to give that away necessarily, unless maybe it's a question in the comments about where you can sit in, a regular boardroom for you to be able to achieve your goals of making that meeting successful. So just, things like that. I'm going to call them little things, but things like that. Or how you use your voice, or you're using your gestures, or even your, I like to call it the RB face, your resting base face. Even that can change the entire context and outcome of a meeting. So you've got to be aware of that. And by the way, just like in the law, what you don't know, you don't know what you don't know. So equip yourself with this sort of uncommon knowledge, if you will. All right. Moving on, the social stage. So the social stage is, for me, it is things like, business dinners or business lunches, gala dinners, networking events, things like that. The social stage, because there is some social aspect to it, but you're representing your brand or your business. So there you go. That's why I talk about networking events, business lunches, gala dinners, those type of events. Okay? As opposed to, say, a meeting in a boardroom. So here we go. I'm going to give you what I call my top faux pas, things to be aware of. They may not make or break the deal, but things to be aware of under those particular settings that I mentioned before. Number one, ladies and gentlemen, it is called a buffet, not an, let me show you how we destroy things in our village. You understand? I mean, I'm being a little judicious with my words. I see people who are killing their brand. Yani umefika hapo, chakula ndio hiyo. People cannot see you because you've decided, wacha nikamate kila kitu. I can see the smiling in the comments. I'm just saying, your brand is on show, guys. Etiquette 101. Kiasi. By the way, I go into this in great detail when I'm actually doing it in person. Not recently, a few years ago, I was on a business trip to China with business colleagues from Kenya. And, we treated very nicely by our hosts. And for the majority of the time, we were staying in a regular 4-star, 5-star hotel, an international hotel. So we had no issues with food or anything like that. But on the last day of our business trip, our Chinese guests decided to take us to an authentic Chinese restaurant. It is true when they say the Chinese will eat everything on God's green earth. If it moves and it can be killed, kamata hiyo, weka kwa meza, tukule. Because they have to feed, I don't know what, 3 billion people? Anyway, listen. We were served authentic Chinese cuisine. And that day was one of the most embarrassing days because some of my colleagues behaved in a way, siwezi, I can't. What is this? It smells. I mean, it was so embarrassing. So this is why I say, try it. Particularly in a business context. Try it. 3 spoonfuls and forks, and then just say, you know what, this has an interesting flavor. Thank you very much. Your host will think. Again, I'm using situations like that just to show you about how you equip yourself when you're in that type of a situation. By the way, it's a convivial activity, this business, dining and eating, which means match your pace and even your portions and other things with, I don't know, the most important person on the table, the VIP, if you will. I mean, obviously, you have to use your own discretion, but this is not about, how do I put it? It's not a contest. It's an opportunity using this particular vehicle in order for you to advance your brand. Okay. Restraint is non-negotiable. What do I mean by that? Restraint in all things. Take it easy. Don't drink too much. In fact, don't drink at all if the circumstances don't cover it. Now, again, of course, we're talking about some sort of settings where alcohol might be provided and you do partake. Sure. I'm not going to be that pedantic and tell you that you cannot drink at your Christmas party. But again, even there, just that is not an opportunity for you to show people that I can be the last man or woman standing. You understand what I mean when I say that? Payment etiquette. If you're taking someone out for lunch, pay for it in advance, things like that. And by the way, give your guest the best seat in the house, the best view, not the view of the wall, but give them a view of a nice window, or maybe the view of the restaurant, and so on and so forth. There's so many things I could have put in here. I just picked a few. In other words, you're using this professional etiquette to enhance your brand and also make that person feel good about themselves or special. And that's, as I alluded to at the beginning of this webinar, is what professional etiquette is about. It's consideration. It's about the platinum rule. What do they want? Let me just share my last few thoughts as I wrap up. I'm going to give a story here. And let me bring up Michelle Obama. So Michelle Obama when the Obamas were in power, went to visit Windsor Castle, of course, went to meet the Queen with her husband, who was the president at the time. And Michelle Obama committed the seemingly unforgivable act of putting her hand around the Queen, as you can see. So just so you know, if you ever get a chance to meet royalty, of course, the Queen has passed on, but who knows? King Charles might come, or you might have a chance to go there. Usimguze tafadhali. They are the ones who deign to extend their hand to you. Now, I'm going to talk about something called grace under pressure, because did the Queen throw a fit? Did she collapse in amazement? Did she call her palace guards to chop off Michelle Obama's head? No. She, in fact, encouraged her. It was as if it never happened. Now, I love this story because for me, this exemplifies what I call grace under pressure. Okay? Because in this business world, we are obviously going to be confronted with a myriad of problems or issues. Okay? So whether it is customers who delay in paying us, customers who are rude to us, or team members who don't listen to us, or a boss who is always on your case, or a direct report who never seems to listen, fill in the blank. The visible expression of internal discipline. That, I can even call it a stoic nature of saying to yourself, I'm going to rise above, or I'm going to handle this differently. You know, in EI, I wish I could bring up that model again. We talk about so many things. Having empathy, having a greater awareness, having self-management, all of these things. It starts inside here, reframing the story that you tell yourself for a perceived slight or inconvenience. If you can master this, so by the way, it starts inside and then it is what you do on the outside. If you can master this, I think you're well on your way to being able to show that you have the professional etiquette that is ultimately going to influence your target market and grow your brand immensely. So, what is the action plan? That action plan that I'd like to leave with you, ladies and gentlemen, is number one. For the next 3 weeks, audit your emails, your LinkedIn, and your WhatsApp. Now, what I mean by audit, I mean I want you to take extra care in terms of everything that you post, write, or send. Does it fit in with a lot of what we've talked about? Do that for 3 weeks. So you're not just blindly posting something on WhatsApp. And of course, I'm talking about maybe if you use WhatsApp for business or LinkedIn. Does it fall in line with some of the things that I've talked about? Number two, I want you in the next 3 weeks to have 3 intentional face-to-face interactions. So again, I'm sure that many of us who are working from home or working virtually, but I want you to set up 3 meetings in the real world. And of course, use some of the tips and the tactics that I have talked about. In fact, the easiest way to change or improve is look for the one that doesn't make you work that hard, the one that is easiest to come by. So I call that the closest edge, the one that is not so difficult to do, if that makes sense. That is my action plan for you and a checklist that I would like you to think about. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to go out there and advance your brand, your image, and your etiquette that your destiny requires. I should have put that in as a nice quote up there. Advance your brand, your image, and the etiquette that your destiny requires. Okay, so Vicky talked about a session that is coming up in a few weeks that you can sign up for. You see if I can pull that up. Where is it? Okay, there we go. So that's a session that's coming up. You can take a screenshot of that and then make a decision. You have a few weeks to be able to make a decision based on that. And for those of you who would like to contact me, perhaps even outside of some of what we've talked about, you can also take a screenshot of that. That should bring up my pertinent contact details, which you can then shoot me a message on LinkedIn or some other platform. I think even my phone number is included there. So once again, that is the session that's coming up. That is how you can sign in or sign up. And for those of you who would like to contact me directly, there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, go be the highest version of you. Vicky, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, as always. Such interesting views. I'm talking about the Chinese part. When you were saying that, I was wondering what is normally my go-to, and I think I'm the kind of person who is first afraid before anything else, and thinking through the impact that has, especially if I'm not very effective in the way that I choose my words. I mean, that's terrible. I have known people who have invited here and just asked them to try motura, and it's a whole other discussion. So we have a question.
Sure.
And this question is from Sharon, and she says, where do we sit in boardrooms? and how do we use our voice? And then she says RBF. I don't know. I don't think I'm supposed to be saying RBF on air, so I'll just leave it on RBF, or maybe I'm interpreting it wrong. So that's the first question. Where do we sit in boardrooms? How do we use our voice and our RBF?
So those are three questions. Vicky, do you want me to answer them now, or you?
Then I think we have a few numbers, but there's a question here that I don't think I got. How do the Dutch do it? Maybe Rachel, you can elaborate. How does the Dutch way work? Oh, sorry, how does the Dutch way work? Maybe it's about payment. You pay Dutch. Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe you can talk
Vicky,
about
just give me 1 second. I want to pull up. I was actually going to get my little board to show you in terms of where to sit, but I've decided that'll be too much work. Let me just explain. So, in terms of sitting, whether you're sitting 2 people in a meeting, 3 people in a meeting, 4 people in a meeting, as I said before, the place that perhaps gives you less authority and impact is opposite a person. Now, if it's an interview situation, you more than likely do not have a choice. In fact, you're needed to be put in that sort of inferior position. But if you can choreograph where people sit and ultimately either sit diagonally opposite or next to someone, again, I can't legislate for every situation, but diagonally opposite or next to someone, that is infinitely more profound than sitting opposite someone. Now, again, I get the question, sitting next to someone, is that awkward? The boardroom can sit, that table can sit 20 people. Would it be awkward? No, but you can mitigate that awkwardness by opening up a laptop, showing some brochures. There's so many things that you can do. And again, when we do this in person, we literally can demonstrate it. But I want your first thought not to be, aya, ameketi pale, wacha mimi niketi hapa, and then have that face-to-face meeting in that type of a scenario. Like I said, diagonally opposite or next to the person is better in terms of body language. All right.
Okay. Okay, please go on. Yeah.
Yes. So I was just answering the next question, which I guess had to do with your resting base face. So typically, I shouldn't use the word typically, but a lot of people, when there is no expression on your face, a lot of people have their mouths slightly turned down. Just observe yourself in a mirror. What you want to do is practice turning your mouth up slightly at the corners. It's almost like you have a little bit of a smirk. And again, this is something that you have to practice so that your face gets used to that resting position, which signals, again, greater connection. And there's a whole thing that works with the brain that I won't get into when you are in some of these business settings. We're all there. We're listening to somebody speak, and our faces are just like this. So as opposed to this, the mouth up. So that's just one example in terms of body language. Then there was a question about going Dutch. Now, I'm not talking about in a non-professional setting. My examples were in a business setting, and particularly if you are the person who has either called that lunch or you've invited your customer or your client or something like that. I don't want to wade into the minefield of payment etiquette when it comes to going on a date or something else. I have strong opinions on that, but I'm going to save them. However, if you have invited out a colleague for lunch, you're the one who did the invitation. It is incumbent upon you to take care of that. And when I say take care of it, there's etiquette like you can pay in advance. You can tell the waiter, don't bring the check. There's so many ways that are more effective that show a little bit of this topic of professional etiquette rather than waiting for the bill to come. So again, that's just something small that you can do to tilt the scales in your favor. Vicky, those are the questions that I heard. Were there others that I may have missed?
We have Elsie. what are the key things I must come out with from a networking event that goes beyond the event?
Okay, I like that question, Elsie. So a networking event is not an opportunity for you to start chasing hors d'oeuvres and samosas during the event. I've seen people who show up for networking events na kazi yao ni, hey, boss bana, kuna samosa, kuna nini? I mean, your job is not there to eat. Fine, I'm not saying that you can't have something so that you don't keel over because you're faint. Your job is to, I like the rule of three, which AI has taken over now. Everything is 3, 3, 3. Meet at least 3 new people. If you know most of the people there, maybe meet somebody and learn 3 new things about them. Get 3 key contacts. In other words, leave that networking event with something that is going to help you in terms of your business or your profession or what you do. So, yeah, networking is a very key opportunity for you to be able to achieve those. Yeah.
All right, the rule of threes.
Mm-hmm.
So I cannot see any more questions. Rachel asked you to clarify around what about if there are different delegations and I'm part of the delegations, how will this sitting align with formal protocol? So that's a question we can park. But everything here is, thank you so much, Derek. Brilliant insights. Of course, asking for the recorded session. Always a pleasure. And someone remembering they first attended your session in about 14 years ago, 2012, 2013, I think, for a while. And Colin saying, this is God sent for me. Thank you. And I'd just like to confirm to everyone that, yes, we will share with you the recording shortly after. So I think later on you can look at the comments shared with you, Derek. They're really, really positive. And then I want to hand it over to you for just that last question about delegations. And then I think we can wrap it up and we can leave your contact details for anyone who'd like to discuss this further with you.
So just before I answer that question, of course, I have only scratched the surface here. All of these things will be covered in great detail in my course. We had an hour. This course is weeks, so we are going to go into excruciating detail on all of these areas. I just literally brushed the surface. Now, in terms of delegates and protocol, there is a particular protocol and delegates, particularly when it comes to countries and that type of a scenario. That is a whole different ballgame in terms of where people sit, who goes first, who leads, who's the first person to eat, which, glass do you use first? And I've actually had the opportunity of training a team on that. Those rules are pretty intricate. They are different. But if somebody's interested in that, maybe that is a session that we can do coming up, which just focuses on that type of diplomatic protocol, which is a little different from some of the business tips that I've shared with you.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you again, Derek. And it is always such a pleasure to host you at all our webinars. And thank you for always coming through, for always sharing so generously. And like he said, there is so much more. And all you have to do is register for the online course. Rachel Wala is asking, is it online or in person? This is online. You log on to the profiles Academy, and then you do get to select Derek Banga's course. And I think I mentioned that it is called, gosh, please don't tell me where is the poster? My goodness.
There it is, Vicky.
Thank you. Personal branding and business etiquette. So all those small things that we've talked about, they are discussed in depth And of course, you do have then the chance to also meet Derek one-on-one on a live session. And if you do want to go further on into personal coaching, then that's a conversation that you can continue depending on how much depth you want to get into the personal branding and business etiquette. I once had someone speak to me about branding, and the one thing they said was that just like everything, your own personal brand takes time because it's really about your own personal being. So I do encourage everyone to seek out first the skill that's through the course, and then secondly, seek out support, seek out further coaching and support, seek out mentors, and seek out accountability partners. So go to www.profilesacademy.co.ke. We will share the link on the chat right now. And for all of you who registered for this particular course, we're going to be sharing an email that has more details. All you have to do is click on the link. Once you register or scan this particular QR code, once you register, you will have different payment options to choose from M-Pesa and as well to card or to PesaPal. So payment is easy once you register. So the course starts on 10th of March, and we are really looking forward to having you on board. If you do know a friend who will benefit from this particular course, please do tag them, share with them the information. As we have heard, the way that you present yourself, the way that you speak, the way that whatever your aura says about you could be the difference between why you either got the opportunity or missed the opportunity. So thank you so much. Allow me to wish you all a lovely evening, and until the next webinar, God bless, and let's keep in touch. Thank you and bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.